Welcome back to the second bit of working on some of our forms. So I have a basic form here and it's not bad. I want to do a couple more things to it and then I want to do some styling. So whenever you're designing a form, it's important to work with the client and understand what is the information that you're getting from them. What are the things that they're trying to collect, what information on a form, and that'll change what types of inputs and things like that you're doing, whether it is something that they could check multiples on or if it's one or the other. So to demonstrate that a little bit as a concept, I'm actually going to put another option for what dish should we add to our fall menu. Right now it's just a checkbox. There's another way to do if I wanted maybe one at a time, I could do it in a drop-down list. So let's see what a drop-down list would look like with that same type of information rather than checking all of them. I could make it a radio button where they could pick one. We could also do a drop-down. So let's go ahead and put that in and use that same type of information. So underneath where I have this label, I've got a break. I'm gonna open that up so I can type in here. And in there, I'm going to go ahead and put in a selector. So it's going to be a select. I'm going to set the ID to being dish. And the name is going to be dish. And that gives me a little selection box. There's nothing there yet because I haven't put anything in. So nested inside that select tag is where you're going to go ahead and put all the options for your drop down. It can be as many as you want. It can be a very deep drop down list. So, and every option for your drop down is going to go in what's called an option tag. So I'm going to set to option. I'm going to set the value to being fish. And I'm going to have that say fish and chips. There you see that populated with fish and chips. I'm going to go ahead and copy paste that again and change it for my second option, which is not going to be fish, it's going to be steak. I'm going to change that to steak and potatoes. And then one more option is going to be our vegetarian penne. And so I can set that value to being veggie. And change that to being vegetable penne. And so now that's given me this drop-down list that I can choose and select my options from. So while that's going to collect this similar type of information, it's collecting it in a different way. So whenever you're deciding on your forms, what you're going to build, how you're going to build it, it's important to know that there are many different ways to collect that input, and it's important to think about what the user is doing for that. I do need to create a label for this because while this is kind of the header for that, I want to have a label that's tied to this so that way users know what they're doing when they're looking at that drop down. So ahead of that, I'm going to have it say label, and that's going to be for, and it needs to match this ID right here. So it's going to say dish. I'm going to say choose a dish. And so now that label is tied to this ID, choose a dish, and I can do my drop down there. It's automatically going to put it in line. If you want it below it, you can just throw in a quick little break tag. That drops it below. I actually kind of like it to the side, so maybe I'll keep it there. There we go. That looks pretty good. So now I've got two different options. Do I want that or do I want that? That my users can do. Let's add in a phone number as well. So after first name, last name, it's going to look very similar, but I can actually put in what's called a pattern for people to type in a phone number. So I'm going to put in right after this break tag for my last name, I'm going to put in a new label. And that's going to say for phone, because it's going to be a phone number. And I'll type in phone number. And then after my ending label tag there, I'm going to go ahead and put in my input. And that's going to say type is going to be telephone, T-E-L. So tel for telephone. I'm going to set the ID, go back that line, ID is going to be phone. Very hard hitting right now. Phone, because it needs to tie to that label. And then I'm going to set the name to being phone as well. I'm going to set the placeholder text to being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. So that way we've got an area code, 3-digit, and then your 4-digit. And then I need to set the pattern for what it allows people to type in there. The pattern is going to be, I'm going to do the square brackets, oops, square brackets, there we go, 0 through 9. Squiggly braces is going to be 3, which allows them to type in 3 digits. Then a dash, then square braces again, 0 through 9. Squiggly braces, 3, so they can type in 3 digits again. Dash, square brackets again, 0 through 9. Squiggly braces for 4 numbers. Then I will end that tag, and there you see that's giving me a phone number that it populates with that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but then I can type in, and that should give me my phone number. So now that we have our form, we're going to go ahead and do some styling, because right now everything is a little bit basic. So I'm going to scroll up to the top where I've been doing my in-document CSS, and let's write some rules for this. So one of the first rules I want to do is I want to actually add in the labels to the rest of my paragraph style so it matches. So right now I have a tag that says paragraph, table head, table data, list item, etc. And I'm going to add into it my input. And then I'm also going to add my labels. There we go. And you can see that that changed all of that text to match. It's now in that Open Sans. It's optically sizing at a font weight of 300. Font style is normal. And so that automatically just made that style a lot better. So some other styling we're going to do is I also want to make sure that these are being styled correctly, as well as, so I'm going to style these text inputs to be a little more gray, to kind of gray them out a little bit. So I'm going to call those out. So whenever you call any of those types of things, you're going to be calling for that ID. So I'm going to type in input and then the pound sign, and I'm going to type in first name, squiggly braces, and I'm going to set the color to being gray. And you can see that that has changed that first name. So let's go through and do that for the rest of them. This one's already a little more gray, but I want to do it for the last name as well. So I'll do a comma, input, hashtag last name. So that way that matches there. That's also gray. And then I'm going to do one more for this text area down here so that matches as well. And just type in, so comma, and then text area. And you can see that that's all turned gray, so it's giving a little bit more of hierarchy where this is more that header. Realizing that with this I could add more style if I wanted to change the fonts, if I wanted to change their appearance, change their sizes. I can go crazy. That's how we're going to call that out, and I can change what appears in those boxes. So next I want to do the submit button because that's pretty boring. So let's write a rule for that. And that's going to kind of follow that same template where I'm going to type in input and then pound sign submit. And you want to make sure that you have given the ID of submit to that button. So because that has to agree with the ID, so double check that you have the ID of submit for that button. Then I'm going to go ahead and put in some padding of 15 pixels just to make that button be a little bit bigger. It's going to add padding all the way around. See how that got bigger? I'm going to change the background color to being that dark gray that we've used elsewhere. So pound 333, 333, and that gives me that nice dark gray color. I'm going to set a border radius just to round those corners a little bit. So border radius is going to be 5 pixels. And that rounds that a little bit. I'm going to set the font color to being white. So color is white. And I'm going to set, there's by default a little bit of a border there. I don't want that there. I'm just going to set the border to being 0. And that'll take that border color off. And I'm going to adjust that font size. It reads a little bit small, so I'm going to adjust the font size to being 16 pixels, and that bumps that up just a little bit. So there my button is reading a little bit larger, a little bit easier, bigger tap target. And you can adjust your buttons as you see necessary. You always want to adjust away from the default while it works. It's just not very exciting. So to go with that, I'm going to go ahead and adjust the hover color as well, just so when I hover over that button, it changes color. So I'm going to type in for that input, pound submit, and then colon hover. And I'm going to set the background color to orange, like we've used elsewhere in this site. And now I can see when I hover over that, I get a nice change. So one of the last things we're going to do in styling this form is I'm just going to adjust this color of this little default drop down And again, you're welcome to style more beyond what I'm going to do in this video, but just to show you that everything in a form is, you are able to change it. So be sure that you are editing beyond the default and make it look your own. So to do that, I'm going to just type in select hashtag or pound dish, because that was the ID that we have. And I'm just going to change the background color to being orange. You see that changes the color. I'll set the border to being none. And this doesn't preview quite well in Phoenix, but it does preview better without, you see that takes a little bit of that border off. So it's going to give it a more of a flat look when it previews in Chrome. So that is a way that you can style and make that look a little bit different as well. So every part of the form is able to be styled. Please style your forms so that they make sense for your user and that they're above and beyond your default. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you on the next one.